You think you know what we're going to talk about.
But unfortunately, I fell down a damn rabbit hole and I've not gotten out yet.
Knife bros.
I literally Googled Sebastian Stan hands.
But just when you least expect it, we changed the game.
Well, yeah, because usually in astrology, they would partner up air signs with fire signs.
All right, you can huggle.
Time travel stories and...
At the end of the day, only one thing matters. We decide.
Well, we should make it a topic. Unfortunately, I didn't take German in school. I took Spanish and I don't remember any of it.
Three Fates Decide podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Three Fates Decide. My name is Sam, and I am here with my other two co-hosts, Liz and Mary. Say hello.
Hi. Hello.
And today we are talking about one of my favorite Harry Potter books, but my most hated Harry Potter movie, which is the sixth book/movie, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. If you've been listening to us talking about the other Harry Potter books and movies, you may recall there was multiple times me and Mary, but I think I really voiced that there was a book, a movie that I absolutely despised. Well, here we are. We've made it. This is. I just remember I saw the midnight showing of this movie and walked out angrier than I've ever been, because what they did with this was so bad that if you never read the books, you watched the sixth movie and then the seventh movie, you were so lost because they did not set up the seventh movie at all. Oh, they focused on the stupidest things as opposed to, the plot.
Uh-huh. I'm with you on this one. I literally think the only thing that the book and the movie had in common was the title and the name of the characters. That was it.
Oh my goodness. So I already have the list of all the differences. It's quite a lot. I will try my best to summarize, but yeah. And as we say before, all of these, spoiler alert, if you've never read/seen any of this. So going into this, the movie came out in 2009. The book came out in 2005, and it's 607 pages. So, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. In Harry's sixth year at Hogwarts, Lord Voldemort and his Death Eaters are increasing their terror upon the wizarding and Muggle worlds. Master Albus Dumbledore persuades his old friend Horace Slughorn to return to Hogwarts as a professor there, since there's a vacancy to be filled. There is a more important. He tells him that there's a vacancy to be filled. There's a more important reason, however, for Slughorn's return. While in a potions lesson, Harry takes possession of a strangely annotated school textbook described, "This is the property of the Half-Blood Prince." Draco Malfoy struggles to carry out a mission presented to him by Voldemort. Meanwhile, Dumbledore and Harry secretly work together to discover the method on how to destroy the Dark Lord once and for all. That is the synopsis. However, the movie didn't focus on a lot of that most of the
Movie
time.
didn't focus on any of that. What are you talking about?
You got
a lot of it. It didn't focus on any of it.
So when we get into it, it's funny. My least favorite movie, but my favorite Harry Potter movie scene, is in this movie. So least favorite movie, but my favorite scene because I thought it was hilarious is all in this movie. So I'll get into that as we go through. So
yes.
That's the synopsis. Um, yeah. Do we just get into the differences now, since that's going to take the longest?
Yes,
Yes,
we
sir.
might as well.
Okay. So let's start at the very beginning. So at the end of the last book, it was mentioned that the current minister, Fudge, Cornelius Fudge, is going to step down as minister. So they introduced the new minister in the 6th book, not in the 6th movie. So in the book, we're going to start again even before that, but in the book, Diagon Alley attack. The Death Eaters actually kidnapped 2 people. In the movie, they only showed them attacking or kidnapping Ollivander, who's in charge of the wands. Also kidnapped Florian Fortescue, who owned the ice cream on Pottercast, which is like a radio program. It's revealed that poor Florian was murdered. So, but not in the movie at all. That not as big of a deal because I mean, no, but still. In the book, Death Eaters destroyed Brockdale Bridge and killed 50 Muggles. In the film, they destroyed Millennium Bridge, which, I mean, which bridge it was, it doesn't matter, but all the Muggles escaped without harm. The reason why this is kind of annoying to me is because that was the reason why you were introduced to the new Prime Minister of Magic. Because in the first chapter, which most of the first chapter of the book is not in the movie, Cornelius Fudge speaking with the Muggle Prime Minister through his little picture and tells him that he's resigned and all that, and introduces him to the new Minister of Magic, Rufius Scrimmager. And basically they were kind of discussing events, because obviously now it's not just the magic world that's being affected by Voldemort, it's the Muggle world as well. So they completely ignore that. In the movie, first time we see Harry is when he's at a cafe by the subways and he's like flirting with a girl. Never even happened. In the book, Harry appears a little bit later. He's not in the first like chapter at all. But anyway. Okay, so the next is where Snape lives. It's called Spinner's End. I mean, not that big of a deal. In basically the film location is very inconsistent with the book, where in the film it's in like a textiles factory, like industrial town, where in the movie it's more of like a water mill or windmill area. But that's neither here nor there. When Narcissa and Bellatrix go to meet Snape in the movie, Bellatrix does not show her as much mistrust and disdain for Snape as she does in the books. And you know, in the movie, she doesn't really press him on his like allegiance or whatever, but in the book, she's very cautious and like, you know, angry with him because obviously he's been playing for the other side the entire time. When they decide to do the unbreakable vow in the movie, Snape hesitates. In the book, he doesn't even question. He just, yes, like, let's do it. To show his allegiance because he's playing playing the game.
Right.
The
long con.
Yes. There's a discrepancy about when you see Peter Pettigrew or whatever, but that doesn't really matter.
No. And I mean, Narcissa's looks don't really matter, but at the same time, I really did not like the fact that they gave her brunette hair.
Yeah,
in
she's
the
supposed
movie.
to have blonde and brunette.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was all blonde in the books. I mean, that's where that was the thing. Her and Lucius and Draco
And
were
Draco
that
are all like that.
real
Blonde.
pale
Yeah.
blonde, almost like a platinum blonde.
Yeah.
And
They
I was
changed it
really
for some
hoping to
reason.
see that, but
Yeah. I don't know
no.
why. I mean, again, maybe it was the actress didn't want. I don't know. May she
Maybe
rest in peace because she's
e
gone now.
exactly, and I mean, she was phenomenal as Narcissa, nobody's denying that, but I just did not like the look. I did not like her looks in the movie. That was nothing against her, that was more the way they styled her, I think.
Mhm.
But I digress, that really isn't big that isn't a big issue. Just a little
Also, the scene is in a different spot in the book as it is in the movie. In the book, the scene takes place directly after Fudge talks to the Prime Minister, but in the film, it takes place after Harry has already met Slughorn and is already on his way to the Burrow to reunite with the Weasleys and Hermione. Just again, not a huge deal, but it's in there.
Right.
Okay, next. The way that Harry meets Dumbledore is different in the book as opposed to the movie because, again, I mentioned that whole thing about Harry being at the cafe with the trains and all that stuff didn't happen. In the book, Dumbledore actually comes to Privet Drive and gets Harry there and sends his stuff to the Burrows so that they can go off and do Dumbledore's bidding to get little Slughorn. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I you know what? I thought it was like the whole thing was very strange, like the beginning of the movie where it's like cuz there's so many details that just don't make sense. It's like
like
Harry
changes
is in
that
a
they
he's in a muggle cafe and he's reading a wizarding newspaper. It's like that's just bizarre. It's
yeah,
like very inconsistent. Cuz it's like
yeah,
no showing magical items around the muggles.
right? Like it makes
Mhm.
no sense. In the film, it is never mentioned that Harry inherited Grimmauld Place or creature after Sirius passed away. In the book, they definitely mention. There's creature and Buckbeak are completely omitted from the film, which isn't big of a deal. And actually, Hagrid got Buckbeak back in the book. So when Harry gets to the Burrow in the book, it's like really, really late. It's like 1 a.m. Ron and Hermione have gone to bed, and the first people that actually see Harry are Molly Weasley and Tonks. In the movie, we just know it's dark when Harry arrives, and Ron, Hermione, and Ginny are all still awake and go to welcome Harry when he enters the Burrow, which, again, not that big of a deal. But so Molly and Tonks meet him first.
In the book. In the movie, it's just the fact that
That Hedwig is
Tonks is
there.
not there.
Yeah, Tonks isn't
And
there. Hedwig is hanging out, and that's how Ginny figures out that he must be there.
yes. And that she um is hugging him and Jenny is hugging Harry, suggesting that they already have an interest in each other when that doesn't happen until much later in the movie or in the book.
Right. There's no mention of Arthur Weasley's promotion. Oh, I forgot to mention, Molly knew that Harry was coming because Dumbledore informed her, but in the book, in the movie, Molly had no idea and just kind of like accepted it. Apparently, she's running an inn and could just drop by.
That's just odd.
Poor Molly. Yeah.
Molly.
It's the
She's like
Weasley
Batman.
family inn.
Um,
Actually, here's an interesting thing. They don't mention Bill and Fleur's wedding,
yeah, I was
which
just
is
about
kind
to
of
say that.
interesting. Right, which is kind of interesting because that was a big because aside from the fact that like, it's a fun thing to have a family wedding, it's a big deal in the 7th book because that was when right, but that was when the Burrow got attacked. in the book. That didn't, but in the movie, it was attacked in this movie and like later, and I guess it was Christmas or whatever.
Yeah. They don't mention in the movie that there are security measures discussed and implied before entering the borough. That is mentioned in the book, but not in the film. And yeah, there's a discussion about Bill and Flora's wedding. It doesn't happen until the 7th book, but there is a discussion about it because in all reality, like with the movies, and again, this isn't that big of a deal, but it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, Bill and Flora somehow know each other and are getting married. Where here you actually learned how Bill and Flora met, and all that stuff. So
Yeah, because they met in the 4th book. Because she showed interest in him in the 4th book. But then between the 4th book and the 6th book, so the 5th book, they obviously got together somehow, and now she's staying at the borough to get to know his family better.
mhm.
And none of the women are happy about it. But the men are all just falling over themselves
Right.
about her.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, that's right.
Which
None
was
of the women like her.
Yeah, which was a great scene in the book, and I love that. And I was like, I really wanted to see that in the movies, and they didn't show it. I was like, damn it.
That would have been pretty funny, actually. Now that I think of it.
Would have.
All right. So the relationship between Tonks and Lupin is implied a little bit in the film, but in the book, they actually kind of go into it a lot more. Actually, a lot more, which they go into it a lot more even in the 7th book, which they kind of ignored in the 7th and 8th movies. But I guess it's because they ignored it in this movie. They didn't feel like it, it. So yeah. So in the movie, Harry, Ron, and Hermione sit around a levitating, smoldering wad of Daily Prophet discussing about Dumbledore, which apparently Harry ignited, but this doesn't happen in the book because and Hogwarts students are not allowed to use magic outside of school. Apparently in the movies they can. Anyway, there's also no discussion on the owl exam results, which in the film, the first time they even, or really, I feel like it's the only time they mention it, is when Professor McGonagall informs Harry that he may have to take potions because he wants to be an Auror, and he exceeded expectations in this subject. So there you go. It's the only time the owls were mentioned, but in the book, it actually goes more into it because then they have to take their newts. So, anyway. All right, next. Good old Draco. Poor Draco. Poor Draco. So,
They did my boy dirty in this movie. I'm sorry. They did my boy Draco dirty in this movie.
So the trio actually ran into the Malfoys at Madame Malkin's shop and actually kind of fight with each other, but neither is shown nor mentioned in the movie. Oh, okay. So in the movie, Draco actually sneaks off on his own to Borgin and Burks to talk about the cabinet, but in the movie, he goes with his mommy. Harry, Ron, and Hermione do not follow him under the cloak and use extendable ears, and Harry and Hermione does not try to trick Morgan into telling her what Draco is reserving in the movie. That happens in the book. There is a wanted poster for but Greyback, who's a known werewolf.
Fenrir Greyback.
Greyback in Nocturne Alley. And he actually becomes kind of a semi-central character in the last book. So kind of remember that name for the next one. The way that Harry gets into the Slytherin car is different, but we don't really care. Pansy Parkinson is Draco's girlfriend is like stroking his hair in the car. They don't even go into the fact that the two of them are actually like dating. Isn't that big of a deal. But Draco deserves some love. The man some love. Damn.
That's why I said they did my boy dirty.
Everyone else got love in this movie.
I know, except for Draco. I'm like, the one time that they could actually show my boy having some actual human interaction that is not necessarily him just being a complete and utter asshole, they cut it out.
Yep. The scene where Draco catches Harry and beats him up or whatever actually is like spot on with the book. I will give them that. They got that scene correct. One scene. Yay!
Yeah. One scene out of the entire damn movie that matches with the book.
God.
Oh dear.
The way Harry is actually found afterwards is different. In the movie, Luna finds him because of wax spurts. But in the book, it's actually Tonks who is checking the train because they realize that Harry never got off.
Although, to be fair, this change, having Luna, and the reason why she figured it out is,
it's very funny.
It's on theme.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it really
very
is.
Luna-esque.
Yes, and I mean, I'm not exactly upset over the fact that they used Luna instead of Tonks to find Harry.
Give Luna some camera time.
I know. I love Luna. Oh my god.
And not to mention, to be fair, it does make her involvement in the 7th book feel a little bit more meaningful.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, now you get more scenes of her interacting with Harry, and it makes more sense actually why she would be interested in helping him.
Right. So I mean, the one thing is, like, in the book, Dumbledore's hand is noticed by the students. Hermione questions and whatever. In the film, they kind of ignore it. All of a sudden, the man just has a really scaly black hand. Totally normal.
Yeah, that just like it has nothing to do with anything. It's just there.
So the House of God. So this is where actually everything gets me ticked off, because the whole thing is with Half-Blood Prince, you learned so much about Voldemort. So much, like it actually, like, the Horcruxes start making sense in the 7th book because of the information you've learned in the 6th book. Like this. House of Gaunt, completely cut. And the director said in the books the memories were a very big part of the J.K. Rowling story. We've actually pared them down in our story, and she was very supportive of that decision. There's such an enjoyable part of reading the Half-Blood Prince, but we've kind of distilled them down to 2 or 3 memories to try and keep everything more in the moment. Flashbacks in films are tricky things. They tend to hold up the momentum of the story you're telling. The creators felt it more important to concentrate on Riddle as a young boy. I disagree with your assessment, Yates.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we learned now nothing makes sense after this point.
Correct. Yeah, they showed little pieces, but they don't go into the history of it. So,
Yeah.
Marope Gaunt is Voldemort's mother. And that is the ring that causes Dumbledore's hand to turn black. It was his mother's ring. Okay? So in the book, it was retrieved in the hands of Voldemort's uncle Morphin, and is actually an heirloom to the Peverell family.
Which is, again, a big thing for the final book, because the thing with the Peverells and the ring, the stone in the ring.
Yep, the resurrection stone mounted in the ring is cracked down the middle, right through to through the symbol of the Deathly Hallows. However, in the film, the stone remains intact, seems to have been purified, and is seen as clear rather than colored. Stone is important. Sorry.
Yes. Well, it's all important, and they fucked it all up.
Yeah.
Pardon my French, but they really did.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Let's get
Got a
to the
huge
important
deal.
stuff. So the secret of riddle. So chapter 13.
Yeah.
So in the film, they kind of do a memory of the orphanage, but it doesn't include Riddle actually hurting kids at the cave. You learn what the cave is, but it kind of just shows, like like I guess they like little Tom mentions that he hurt people, but like they don't actually like go into it. Ask whether his father was a wizard, and doesn't mention his thinking that his mother must have been Muggle since she didn't survive. So the whole thing with his parents is going to be a big thing.
Yeah, but we don't know any of it because they didn't.
They didn't go into it.
They cut out the entire freaking chapter that talked about it, considering that his mother was actually the witch and his father was the Muggle.
Exactly. Oh God, am I getting all agitated again? Yes.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because I mean, Tom just assumed that his father was the wizard because his mother didn't survive, when it was actually the complete opposite. And you don't find out that Merope is the one that murders her father because of the horrific stuff that he did to her. That they don't tell you, that they don't go into detail in the book about, but you can figure it out because it's implied what he did to her.
Mm-hmm.
He was a horrible person.
Yeah. Yep. The next chapter we don't really need to.
Yeah,
No, the
Felix
only
Felicis-
thing is that again, what gets brought up, and again, it's not that important, but Hermione and Crumb kind of get brought up. Ron wants to know if they ever kissed, and he gets very angry with her, and basically it's kind of implied in the book that Ron starts dating Lavender almost to get revenge on Hermione about Crumb, as opposed to actually like liking Lavender. Not a huge point, but that's their relationship development. So yeah, as you mentioned, Liz, with Christmas. So at Christmas, Harry goes back to the Burrow, and in the movie, Burrow is attacked by Death Eaters. However, it doesn't happen in the book.
Right.
Like that.
Right. Because
Like that
because
doesn't happen at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
because like in the books there was an attack on the Burrow, but that's in the final book. It's not in this
Right.
book, which I don't get what the point of that was.
Right.
To be
Like they
honest.
just added a scene. Like you take out important plot points, but you add that crappiness in.
Exactly.
Right, because when you think about it in the book where they get attacked at the wedding reception, that makes a little bit more sense because you have all these wizards there, especially members of the order, and this is a convenient way to kill, in essence, like a bunch of them at once. And also that chaos was when the three kids start on their whole Horcrux hunting adventures. Because that was the time when they escaped and the craziness. So
Remus and Harry in the film, they do have a bit of a discussion, but it's nowhere near the length that it is in the book, which I mean, again, I kind of get, but Remus is actually like defending Snape, saying that Snape helped him by brewing Wolf's Bane potion every month to kind of help him with his werewolfness. They go into detail about Greyback, who's a werewolf, and actually discuss that Greyback is the one that turned Lupin into a werewolf. Percy Weasley arrives. Now, remember, we've talked about this, I think, the last two books, how Percy kind of started separating from the family a little bit. Well, here it comes.
Percy was an insufferable get for several books.
Yes.
Until the last book, honestly.
Yes.
And I wanted
it was
to
too
beat
little,
Percy.
too late.
Yeah, But I wanted to beat Percy with all my might in this book.
But on Christmas Day, Percy arrives at the Burrow with the new Minister of Magic. And basically, they try to persuade Harry to help the Ministry by telling the Wizarding World that the Ministry is doing a wonderful job. Guess what Harry says?
Fuck off. That's what I did. That's what I'd have told him, but in maybe slightly nicer terms.
So it is implied that Tonks and Remus have already been going out, and that Tonks is very concerned about Remus, which is why she doesn't have the different color hair. Because she's worried about safety and is anxious and all that. So, she's feeling very. And I think this is where we find out that Tonks is a relative of Sirius, and as well Bellatrix and Narcissa.
Yeah.
We find that out in this book as well.
Pretty sure that, yeah, she finds, because her sister is, her mother's Andromeda, who was Andromeda Black. And then she married Ted Tonks.
Yes.
And she got disowned because of that.
Yep.
Well, yeah, she married a Muggle. What'd you expect?
And they're still, her parents are still alive. Tonks' parents are still, that
Yes.
we get into that more in the next book. Going back to the things that they skipped. Memory of Gaunt House, Merope with the locket, Voldemort going to kill the Riddles and stealing the ring, the memory of Voldemort working at Borgin and Burke's and wanting the cup and the locket, and one where Voldemort returns to school to ask to teach have all been omitted from the movie. Only memory is of the orphanage and Voldemort asking about Horcruxes. Everything else, null and void. The whole emphasis on the Riddle family and how he, didn't want to associate or whatever, and killed them. Out. Done. Boom.
Not in. Not there. And then Slughorn's false memory. That was a crock of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's supposed to be cloudy, I guess. Instead, they kind of make it muted. Memory showing Saba Smith and House Elf Hokey were not shown nor mentioned in the film, despite this memory being crucial to why Hufflepuff's cup and Slytherin's locket became Horcruxes and how Voldemort found them. Oh God, I'm getting angry.
Yeah, we're basically at the point of this where we can't hardly speak about this movie without it being in absolute utter anger.
The more I read, the more I'm getting ticked.
I can feel my blood pressure rising.
Oh my goodness.
Seriously.
The memory of Voldemort applying for the Defense Against
Dark Arts position.
Yep, while during his transitional phase while in his transitional phase where it is stated his features were burned out. He was not yet the form he would become present day. So he was in the middle of changing. He was losing his nose, but it wasn't gone. You find out Voldemort's initial followers, such as Avery, were not included in the film. In the book, Dumbledore does not scold Harry for his inability to obtain the unaltered memory from Slughorn. Rather, he's impressed immensely. He expressed immense disappointment to make Harry feel guilty. That's mean. Forgot about that.
Well, Dumbledore was you want to talk about gaslighting and manipulation.
He's the king.
Dumbledore. I mean, he gaslit and manipulated a child from the time he was 11 years old until he was 16, I mean, really. Well, 17, really. And I just like,
Yeah.
no. But then I didn't like. I love Dumbledore in the books because even though he was a gaslighting bastard, he still had that thing that just kind of made you like him.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you're just like, you're a horrible, evil person. You're just as bad as Voldemort. Only you don't kill people,
Right.
but you send a child to be killed. It's just really strange. I don't know. It's weird.
In the film, Dumbledore doesn't mention to Harry that my goodness, defense against the dark arts teaching position is possibly jinxed by Voldemort because he refused Voldemort's request for a job. And so no one can retain the position for more than a year, though, kind of obvious. You notice every year we have a new one. But in the original script, apparently, like, it's mentioned, but they never explain in the film, like, who jinxed it or why or if it's actually jinxed at all or whatever. So, scene where Harry notices Malfoy disappearing on the Marauders map when he enters the room of requirement is omitted in the film, but it's featured as a deleted scene on DVD. And they actually mention this in the 8th film, and Ron and Hermione have the map during the battle, and Ron mentions, "Oh, you can't see like when you go into the room of requirement, like on the map or whatever." But they don't actually say that in any of the other films, but it's mentioned in the book.
Well, a lot of things were mentioned in
Yeah.
the book that weren't mentioned in the film. Sorry.
Okay, so this is actually, I'm just going to say, my favorite scene in the film. Whether or not it actually matches to the book, in the film I thought it was hilarious, but anyway. In the film, the trio didn't receive a letter from Hagrid informing them that Aragog died. Instead, Harry just happened to go to Hagrid's because he drank the Felix Felicis.
Felix Sorry.
But in the book, I think Harry only took a few drops. In the movie, he like took it like a shot.
Yeah, he just like he took the whole bottle. He's like,
Actually, in this movie, they mentioned that Aragog's size is actually seems to be smaller than it was in the second film's adaptation. So, well, error there. So in the books, I mean, again, this isn't important, but Slughorn doesn't ask Hagrid for Aragog's venom. He just kind of sneaks it. Slughorn has no shame at all. So, okay, I'm just gonna say the reason why I love this part in the film. Dan Radcliffe is hilarious in this scene. Like when he's like stoned from Felicitas, whatever. Felicitas.
Felix
But yeah, I just thought it was hilarious, and my friends and I actually still quote it sometimes. Like when he says like, "Don't forget the pinchers," he's just like, it's just hilarious.
But the sad thing of it is that he was probably drunk when he filmed it.
I know, but you know what? Bravo. You seem like a great drunk, and I would gladly drink with you, Daniel Radcliffe. So, you can invite your
But
wife.
no, you do know he actually had a drinking problem.
No, he did.
He's like been sober for years now.
All right, fine. Ruining this.
I know. It's when he was drinking, he probably would have been awesome to drink
Right,
with.
but now,
Obviously
I respect it. Yes, we don't want you to be one of those people.
Exactly. And we're not making light of the fact that he did have a problem with alcohol, but he has gotten help for it, and he is in recovery, and he will always be in recovery for it. And bravo to Daniel Radcliffe for taking the steps that he needed to get healthy again and to get better.
Bravo to him to still be able to do his job. I mean, it would have been better if he wasn't drunk, but yes. And then obviously realizing he had an issue and taking care of it
Yes.
at a young age. You know, like he was still young enough that he could set himself straight. So, bravo.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yes.
I remember watching an interview or whatever, and he said he could tell the scenes he was drunk. Not good. I think that's probably was his wake-up call.
Probably.
All right, so yeah, so I wanted to mention that scene because that was my favorite scene in all of the Harry Potter movies because I just thought it was funny. Now let's get back to the angry stuff.
That was probably a good scene. Yes.
The Horcruxes. This, I think, is probably the most crucial thing that they left out. Because in the movie, only really the ring and the diary are mentioned to be Horcruxes. Ring, which is supposed to be set with a plain round stone bearing the crude carving of the Deathly Hallows, is instead set with the fluorite cut honey brown gemstone. Dumbledore does not actually have possession of Tom Riddle's diary as it's shown in the film. Harry gave it back to Lucius at the end of the Chamber of Secrets. However, Lucius gave the diary to Dobby, and Dobby may have given the diary back to Harry or Dumbledore. One thing that people may have noticed is that in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets film, Tom Riddle's diary, after it's destroyed, shows only a small hole in the middle, but in this film, it looks like a bomb exploded in it.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of strange. She's like, I know that the basilisk venom is like very powerful, but
You're gonna say it. Do it. Say it.
It didn't match up.
I want to know why. Well, we have to save that. What you're thinking about, we have to save it to the next book because just in case, I don't want to, blow anyone's mind.
Right.
They may not know. Hold that thought.
Right. I mean, I'm not going any further with that thought, but I'm just
you save that thought. We will be back with that.
Maybe by then I'll actually get my thought in order in my head the way I want to say it too. That might work.
I know exactly what you're talking about. We're gonna put a bookmark on that.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in it till later.
All right. So as noted before, the cup and the locket story completely left out, and something of Gryffindor or Ravenclaw and Nagini are not debated to be Horcruxes. However, pieces of swords are seen to be mounted on the balcony wall in Dumbledore's study. I don't know why they mentioned that, but okay. So, but basically the conversation was that it was like something from each house and possibly Nagini are all possible Horcruxes. I'm not going to go into that. Who cares what a Horcrux is? Let's see.
Hell, you barely even find out what a Horcrux is in the movie anyway.
Dumbledore only mentions that Horcruxes could be anything, thus it implies that they don't know what they could be, which obviously is a big fat lie. Dumbledore never mentions that Voldemort searched for treasures and that it might be possible that his Horcruxes were valuable treasures of Hogwarts founders, as I just mentioned. Harry never gets to know how Dumbledore found out about the cave. Such a stupid. Harry and Dumbledore actually have many, 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 many talks about Voldemort in the book. They don't. Voldemort who in the movie? Because, why do we care? We kind of learn about his personality. It's explained in the book that he's someone who likes to control people. He was very charming with all the teachers, who places great meaning on places where he's tortured others, and who feels a deep connection to Hogwarts because it is proof is special and is a wizard, and because it feels like his home. However, these details were focused in the Chamber of Secrets film, not in this film. Which I feel like it was more important in this film. Number one, it shows you kind of how much more similar Voldemort and Harry were, where they both felt like Hogwarts was like the only home they had. But thing with the next book also explains where possible Horcruxes could be hidden. Because again, it's about, how he takes pride in places that he's injured people, and so that's why the cave was special, because he used to hurt kids there all the time because he's crazy.
He was evil. He was evil. He was evil. He was born evil. Sadly, he was born evil.
So in the book, Harry is questioning Dumbledore a lot about why he trusts Snape, especially when he learned that Snape actually was the one who told Voldemort about the prophecy that caused the murder of his parents. So Harry's hatred for Snape, it ran a little bit deeper than what they showed, because he kind of found out that little detail. Harry gives the rest of old Felix Felicis to Hermione and Ron before meeting Dumbledore. Snape's argument with Dumbledore, which took place at the Forbidden Forest at night, is overheard by Hagrid, who disclosed to Harry in the book. But in the movie, it's in the astronomy tower when Harry goes to meet up with Dumbledore. In the book, Dumbledore and Harry, who's under the invisibility cloak, walk Hogshead in the village of Hogsmeade, and that's where they disapparate to the cave. In the film, they go straight from the astronomy tower. Again, not that big of a deal, but the cave. I actually thought they did a okay job with this. So in the book, Dumbledore kind of disappears him from penetrating the potion, and he realizes that the potion cannot be penetrated by conventional means and begins to ponder how to reach the Horcrux. In the film, Dumbledore simply attempts to penetrate it, but is only able to touch the surface. He immediately concludes that the potion must be drunk because, he's a genius in the movie. I mean, he's a genius anyway, but still. The potion in the basin was black rather than glowing green. And the goblet used to drink the potion was replaced by a shell, which is placed beside the basin rather than summoned by Dumbledore using a nonverbal spell. The book drinks about 3 cups of the potion before falling prey to its effects. In the film, he starts reacting after his first drink. In the book, the potion eventually causes him to faint, but in the film, while suffering badly from the potion, he manages to remain conscious the entire time. When Harry tries to get Dumbledore water from the basin, he fills the cup, but the cup is empty by the time he gets it to Dumbledore. In the film, Harry attempts to scoop out the water with the shell. Water seems to go right through the shell as though it were a ghost. In the film, the spell Lumos Maxima is shown again, this time as a glowing ball of light that could be thrown rather than a more powerful version of Lumos. Though the Inferi in the book climb out of the lake and attempt to drag Harry back in with them, they actually pull him underwater in the film. So that doesn't happen. Rather than trap them on the island with a lasso of fire, as he does in the book, Dumbledore attacks the Inferi by conjuring a massive wave of fire, which could be a controlled version of fiend fire, and parts the flames using a spell that was not mentioned in the book. And in the book, Dumbledore is left in a considerably weakened state after drinking the potion, which continues up to his death. This is less evident in the film. It's true. In the film, you can tell he's weak, but in the book, he's weak. So when they come back from the cave, they wind up back in Hogsmeade, and they're told by Madame Rosmerta, not in the film, that the dark mark appeared over the astronomy tower. And Harry and Dumbledore borrow her broomsticks and head up there. In the film, Harry and Dumbledore go directly to the astronomy tower, and the dark mark is not cast until after Dumbledore's death. That is not true, but that's not a big deal. In the book, Harry's frozen by Dumbledore, and that's why Harry can't help Dumbledore, and Dumbledore did this because he didn't want Harry's help. But in the movie, he just tells Harry to go hide. Just hide. In the book, Amicus Caro finds Draco with Dumbledore, and he pressures Draco to kill Dumbledore. In the film, it's Bellatrix Lestrange who pressures Draco. The one thing that they don't talk about is how Snape is the Half-Blood Prince. All you know is that Snape is the Half-Blood Prince, and you find out really the reason why is because he is half-blooded, and his mother's maiden name was Prince. We'll talk about that. I guess that's not a big deal, but yeah. Which explains why him and Lily met for Hogwarts.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's kind of funny how literally the title is Harry Potter the Half-Blood Prince, but then the reveal is like practically a
Right.
throwaway.
Like they basically said like they put
detail.
in that sentence just so that like the name of the movie is there, but they don't go into explanation. We're almost done, people. We're almost done.
My blood pressure's through the roof right now.
In the novel, it is said that Dumbledore appeared frozen in the sky, although this was just from Harry's perspective, so could just be like drama. Obviously, in the film, Dumbledore just goes over the railing and heads toward the ground. Oh, there's actually a battle between the Death Eaters and Hogwarts staff and students after Dumbledore dies in the book. But in the movie, they kind of just walk out. Like, all right, we're done. Oh, God. Bill Weasley does not appear in the film. However, in the book, he is there to fight and gets bitten by Greyback. You find out in this 7th book that, oh, my name's Bill and I was bit by Greyback.
He wasn't bit, he was scratched. Because if I remember correctly, it was he had 3 long slashes across his face.
Yeah, that's what happened
in the book. Now, and I don't think there was a bite in there. I think what happened was when he slashed because because they were worried that he might have gotten some of the saliva from Greyback. From Greyback like snarling maybe or like over top of him salivating or something. They were worried about it, but it turns out that the only thing that he did was he preferred his steak raw.
right, because Bill does not end up becoming a werewolf.
But anyway, this is where he becomes part werewolf as opposed to in the movies. We just don't know. In the book, Snape reacts with livid emotion when Harry calls him a coward. However, in the film, Snape just doesn't care. And in the film, Harry doesn't try to use the Cruciatus curse on Snape. I think he just does Sectum Sempra or whatever, Sectum Sempra. So in the book, when Hagrid's cabin is set on fire, Fang was actually trapped inside. And Hagrid has to go and save him, but in the movie, Hagrid nor Fang were there. Professor McGonagall joins the crowd who discovered Albus Dumbledore's body in the foot of the astronomy tower. She leads the Hogwarts students and staff raising their wands to be rid of the dark mark in respect of the now deceased headmaster. Well, that they got right. In the book, Harry actually opened the locket, found out that it was fake when he was sitting next to Dumbledore's dead body. And the necklace doesn't have the Slytherin S symbol on it to show that it's actually like from the Slytherin house. Because remember, we talked about how he had something from each house. That necklace is Slytherin's house. In the book, Dumbledore appears to be bleeding from his mouth after being killed. And Harry, wipes it, but that doesn't matter. So in the movie, Ginny does comfort Harry, but in the book, she also brings him up to the hospital wing. And that's where you see Bill and Fleur, and Fleur is still telling Bill that she'll still marry him even with his scars. She loves him.
That was sweet, though.
Yes.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
But she had me right up until she said, "I have enough beauty for the both of us." I was just like, you had me right into that point, Fleur. Just didn't have to say that.
And then the last thing was that they actually had Dumbledore's funeral at the end. White tomb and everything they had all that. They didn't go into that at all in the film. The only thing that they show is that Fox flies away. He's just filthy Ed. Also in the book, Harry breaks up with Ginny because he feels that he is not safe for her to be close to him. They actually break up, get together and break up all in one book. And that is the end.
Yes.
Oh, and like the very last thing as you see is like the Elder Wand is in Dumbledore's tomb, which you find out obviously in the next movie. But yeah. So that's and again, the reason why this one, it's not about how many differences there are. It's more of the things they completely left out, which again is literally the plot. Like the things that we didn't talk about in this whole thing was about the relationships between like Lavender and Hermione and Ron and like that little love triangle. And then
that they went into a little too much detail in the movies, I
way
thought.
too much detail. And obviously like Ginny and
Yeah.
Harry and like it's just like, you know, they focused
Yeah.
it was like a rom-com type thing instead of focusing on, hey, these are the Horcruxes, like these are the possible Horcruxes. This is how we found out what the Horcruxes could possibly be and where they could possibly be. And okay, here's your setup for
And
the
how they're freaking made.
how they're made and
Right.
like, you know, all
Yeah.
that. And instead it's like, okay, you're going into the next two movies. If you haven't read anything, not knowing what the heck, like how the heck, like, it basically makes like the 7th and 8th movie, they just got lucky finding these things.
Yeah, I mean, like in a previous Harry Potter episode, like I kind of mentioned this, but like if this had been like, a TV series, then yeah, you had plenty of episodes to, mention as a B-line story, if you will. Like, the romantic entanglements of the teenage characters, which would have been fine, because, it's like, because it would have allowed Harry and, Hermione and Ron to have, the more personal individual development, teenage struggles that every teenager their age is dealing with, which would have been fine in a TV series. But in a movie where you have roughly 2.5 hours to adapt a 600 plus page book, it's like, guys, priorities here.
Yeah, like seriously, like I'm telling you, I walked out. I had my best friend and my sister, and we walked out, and we were just like, "What the heck did we just watch?" Like like there was no setup. Like you literally ignored the most important parts of this book.
They ignored 3/4 of the plot of the entire book.
Yes, like, it's just so like yes, okay, it's great that like you still got to see that Dumbledore was showing Harry because he knew that he wasn't going to be here much longer, and so he wanted to set Harry on path to finish what they started and blah. But like there was no explanation as to how he was ever going to find anything. It was just or like, and you got a deep dive into Voldemort, and you learned why he doesn't like muggles and half-breeds because he is one. And his mother basically died because she was so heartbroken because the man that she was in love with and basically like forced him to impregnate her didn't want her, like it was just like, and that's why he killed the Riddles. Like there's all this backstory on Voldemort. You really get a deep dive into who Tom Riddle was and how he became Voldemort and why he's the way he kind of is. And they just
What makes him tick,
and they just
basically.
completely ignore it. Completely ignore it. I would rather you ignore the stupid love triangles between the kids and let's focus on like the real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I really don't need to know that Ron and Lavender are that Hermione is jealous over the fact, though she doesn't want to admit that she's jealous over the fact, and just all this bullshit. I just like I didn't need to know it. I didn't care.
So that is, again, why this is my least favorite movie, though, again, it does have my favorite scene, but my least favorite movie out of all of them because it was just so ridiculous parts that it focused on compared to the parts that it needed to focus on. I think every person that has read the books and saw the movies feels the same way. Because again, if you did not read the books, you went into that seventh movie not really knowing. You weren't set up for anything. You were as lost as Harry, Ron, and Hermione were at the end of the sixth movie. Like, you had no idea. Like, like how's Harry gonna find them? How many Horcruxes did Voldemort make?
I think Luna had it more together at the end of the sixth movie. Those three.
Oh God.
And poor Luna had her head in the clouds the entire damn time. That girl. God love her.
Now,
God love her.
the next time we, for Harry Potter, for 7th book and then 7th and 8th movie, I am going to say this now and I'll say it again. They did a great job bringing it back what it needed to be. And like getting it back on track that you could, obviously there's some changes and stuff there too, but I thought they did a good job with the last two movies. This one is just,
Yeah.
if you just delete this movie, I'd be happy. Let's just skip it. We might as well skip it. You wouldn't even lose anything.
Right?
You could completely delete this film and still be okay.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of meant like, again, I'm bringing this up for like the third time, I guess, but it genuinely would be interesting to me if at some point later on, they actually did try to adapt the series into a TV series. It would be interesting, actually.
Hey, they're doing it with Lord of
they
the Rings.
Yeah, I mean, okay, because like it's been it's been years now that the movies have been in theaters and were released and everything, but it wouldn't be too surprising if at some point, maybe 10 years from now or whatever, they actually try to do it as a TV series because you do have plenty of material to because I mean it's like, well, if you're willing to milk Tolkien, 20 years after you did like you had the famous trilogy by Peter Jackson of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's like, well, if you're doing a TV series like 20 years after he did those movies, then what's to say you can't do that to Harry Potter? I mean, Harry Potter is one of those like titles, book series where like you will always have a new generation discovering the books and falling in love with it, because there are many things about the books that were great and appeal to kids, no matter, whether it's like in the 1990s when they first started coming out to, I don't know, 50 years from now. So,
yeah. I would have loved to have seen Peter Jackson's take on Harry Potter. Because I mean, if he had been like a Harry Potter fan and like actually the books as much as he loves the Tolkien stuff, that would have been very interesting to see.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch us next time.
And see what we're going to talk about.
Because the three fates decide.